Hello, everybody. Kiran Manjal and I are back again this week to talk about a very interesting subject. It's got to do with influencers. You see, everything today is influenced by a bunch of people who, via social media, say and do things that we get impacted by. But the real influencers in the country are the people we intend to talk about today, the real social influencers who have influenced at least half of the 1.4 billion population of India. And those are our godmen, ladies and gentlemen. Kiran and I have been basically tiptoeing around this topic because you can often ruffle feathers with it. But today we are going right in with it.
And we're bracing ourselves and crossing our fingers. And
We'll try not to name too many people. We leave the guesswork to you.
and we have some stories.
Okay,
some
Kiran. So
anecdotes.
this is such a vast subject because we have such a vast population of godmen who are all prominent. Some are in prison. Some have started their own countries.
and I've even applied for UN membership.
Why? You know that. So let's to give you all a little insight into this, and you probably already know. It's Nityananda. There's a Swami, self-proclaimed Swami Nityananda, who, after rape and molestation charges, and used to run a mini cult which grew into a big cult based out of Bangalore.
Yeah, somewhere in the south.
He had to flee for his life, so he went to somewhere near Ecuador. So Nityanand started his own country called Kailasa, somewhere near Ecuador, and he runs something called a Bank of Kailasa. It has its own currency and its own passport. And if that's not enough, his disciple, a woman called Nivedita Nityananda, represented her country in Geneva at a UN meeting. So much for legitimizing the culture of godmen, not just within our country, even internationally.
But this has always been happening. I believe there was another godman earlier who also did something similar, who had taken himself out of the country, established his own country and his own currency, and also with a sizable population of his own for reproductive purposes.
And if that's not enough, Swami Nityananda has a disciple called Vijaypriya Nityananda, who represented her country at a UN meeting in UN conference in Geneva.
Interesting.
So much for legitimizing, rapists, murderers under the garb of, religion and spirituality.
So I don't think he's the first Indian Swami cult leader to establish his own country. We've had precedents before.
Really?
Yeah, we've had Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who back then went to the Netherlands and set up his own country called Vlodrop, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't think he actually went to the UN and asked for citizenship.
But did he have
He had currency.
But did he have criminal charges against him?
I don't know about the criminal charges, but you might know his most famous disciples, the Beatles.
Yes, but I don't think he had criminal charges against him. Because Mahesh Yogi continued to hold some currency even in the intelligence circles, amongst intelligentsia, people of, certain amount of reasoning and ability to think for themselves.
And transcendental meditation, which he sort of popularized.
No. So, at least we can say that, like, not all godmen are thugs. Naturally, many of them work as good therapists, spiritual coaches, counselors, and, as I said, social influencers. So I think that life in a country like ours, with all the challenges we faced since after independence, is a country that's beset with so many problems that people want an escape, and they don't want to take decisions for themselves. They don't want to hold themselves responsible for, just taking one misstep. So they rely on an external
source of validation.
And having said that, we are also a country that has produced legitimate gurus. We are also a country, been able to tap into the next realm of spirituality, or the fifth dimension, as one gentleman who stopped going to work, an engineer, claims. He stopped going to work, and the HR called and asked him that, you haven't shown up what's going on. And he said, well, I shall not be working any longer because I've just realized that I am the 10th avatar of Vishnu, and I'm now tapping into the fifth dimension.
They should have just sent him to a shrink. I mean,
This is your schizophrenia.
yeah, instead of indulging him and getting news reports written about him.
Yeah, but it's just so much fun. I mean, it's hilarious. Who needs all these shows about comedy sketches and stand-up comedians when your own country gives you raw material for that every day.
Researching this up was very interesting because 9 out of 10 of the gurus have either murder charges, rape charges, sexual assault. One of them has even had 400 men castrated.
Of course, Dera Sacha Sauda.
So, I mean, with all this happening, it makes you wonder, why are people so gullible? Why do people go for these cults? What is it about it that makes you feel that, you have to plight your throat with them? And
I think they start off by, the priming they do is by finding the disenfranchised, the communities that don't find representation, don't have a voice, don't have the resources, and, guiding them and making them feel love. Basically, they teach you, in the beginning at least, to love yourself. They make you feel special. They make you feel like an equal child of God, quote unquote, right? And that's what they make you feel good about yourself. Everybody does want to feel good about themselves. So this is the easiest route that they find.
So this is this is the playbook that the emotionally unavailable men of today use on the women. Love bomb them.
That's
get
right.
them to love them back and
That's
then
right.
disappear.
I
Get them to do
I
their
get them to
bidding.
write off checks to you.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is the
Collecting
playbook.
swindler.
Yeah.
This is the spiritual swindler.
Yeah.
One, actually.
Yeah.
So I love Dera Sacha Sauda because he's like Da Vinci. He's so multifaceted. He
made
sings the
movies.
Love Charger. I'm a Love Charger song. And I love it actually. It's quite catchy. I'm a Love Charger. And then you
I
have...
will not get into the deeper implications
I-
of the love charger. The title of the song.
Yeah. I've seen him at the JW Marriott in Bombay.
Hotel
In
oil.
his leotard, sleeveless workout clothes. He was going to work out.
Did you have to put rose drops into your eyes afterwards?
I mean, I actually, there's something compelling about these people. They're caricatures, but their confidence, that is what strikes you. Now, he went and castrated, how many men did he castrate?
400 men.
400 men. While sorting out the lives of a few men and women, going on to, then raping women. Bobby Deol was acted in a film
Ashram, which was very popular.
made on his life. Yeah, I think we should have watched that. So I'm just saying, he's out again on bail now, isn't he?
He keeps coming in and out. I mean, it's like he's like going into a hotel and coming back.
See, they are actually a vote bank also.
And they can't. I mean, when he was arrested, I mean, the riots that happened, the people that died, and all the trouble that happened in Chandigarh, Panchkula, just goes to show you.
40 people died.
Yeah, just goes to show you the kind of hold they have over the people.
Kiran, I feel that when people die for these people, or at least, create some sort of, or take risks with their own lives, it is because somewhere deep down are making them question themselves.
Why did I believe
So and so made me feel good about myself. So when you take that person away from me, you're taking away my whole being away from me.
I think it's like, political affiliation. When you're very pro a certain political party and you're made to question it, it sort of impinges on your own sense of self.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But it same goes for Jay Shetty, who recently got exposed. He's not a god man, but he is a self-proclaimed therapist, counselor, been a yogi, been whatnot. All those contradictions in his story, his ex-colleagues from the ashram and his ex-girlfriend, he's been called out now.
He's been called out in how, and his lawyers are still trying to fight that case.
And rehashing everybody else's wisdom by directly lifting it off people's posts. You wouldn't believe it the other day. I was looking at some short meditation videos on YouTube. And then something came up about every human being has 50 to 80,000 thoughts in a day.
That's a lot.
And we discussed it here. I repeated those words verbatim at the podcast. It wasn't my own wisdom. I obviously gleaned it off the internet. There's a woman who goes through an entire segment of mind, thought patterns, how to change your thought patterns. After Jay Shetty got called out, despite him getting called out, someone on Instagram thinks that I'm interested in him because in my algorithm, he showed up. He was saying the same thing. But that woman's video is really old.
Oh.
So any one of us can go over video recordings, there's everything on YouTube today, and start our own cults, become spiritually prominent. I think what you really need is a gift of the gab, but also a story where certain kind of austerities have been observed. Like
I had to wear hand-me-downs for all my childhood. So much austerity.
actually, you have the makings of.
Yeah, I could be a cult leader.
Yeah.
I need to, dress in full red and put on lipstick.
Like our favorite Radhe Ma.
And do, sing loud and raucous. I have not met, I have seen it at a distance, and it has been the most strange experience, for lack of a better word, because she came to a satsang in the previous society that I lived in. For hours before she was due to arrive, people had packed the place, and then she came and she was carried into the place, like an infantile Chinese woman.
I heard an explanation for that. She said this in English, that everything lies in the eyes of the beholder. She speaks with a Punjabi Jat accent, and she said that people who are carrying me are my bhaks. Sometimes even my own sons carry me, because she said she gets very claustrophobic in large crowds.
Okay.
So all they do is that with their shraddha, they pick her up and they
take her.
Yeah.
So I thought this was a new version of, the Chinese women who had their feet bound and couldn't walk anywhere, and therefore a status symbol that they were carried everywhere. But then I saw her dancing, the videos of her dancing.
Was she a dancer or something?
I don't know about that, but she was dancing. There were videos of her dancing, and I realized there's nothing wrong with her feet.
Yeah, she dances on Bollywood songs. No, her feet don't have a problem. Claustrophobia when she's surrounded by her bucks.
Interesting. And it was quite crazy, the mania that happened when she entered.
I'm sure.
All shouts, cries, and she's pretty young, looking for what she
said that she's a grandmom.
Yeah. I mean, she really had her kids young. I mean, maybe she was... I don't know.
What is the story? Her husband died or something?
I don't know the story, but I know she's had kids and she's a grandmom. That much I know. And she's got a very interesting fashion sense, that I know.
Yes.
And that people are crazy about her and attend those satsangs in hordes.
There was one video I watched in which she was crying and she's saying, "Meri bhi feelings hurt hoti hain."
There was a very interesting article I read about someone who also became a self-help guru, not a religious guru, but a self-help guru. And she sort of realized how easy it was to become one when she was backstage at a talk that Deepak Chopra was giving.
I see.
And Deepak Chopra asked one of the other people who was helping him out get ready, "Do I look fat in these chinos?"
Maybe he was jesting.
No, he was very serious. Okay. And she realized that even gurus with all the higher dimensions that they talk about are concerned about looking fat. And
so I'll tell you something interesting. I was speaking to a gentleman who scans your brain. And basically he helps people tap into their brain's potential. He may not like me naming him on this podcast, so I shall not name him. But he was telling me that he has scanned the brains of a lot of people who are part of large religious organizations, and not just religious organizations, spiritual organizations, which are different in the sense that you suppose one is, supposed to be a little more evolved than the other. And you're supposed to shed your ego and all that. And he said that their brains in the scans were no different from the brains of a investment banker. Who is actually just, the stress and the pressure they live through, the desire for a better life, or for power. So these guys have a desire for power. And even in a Buddhist order, when you're part of an order, of an organization, like spirituality is now
become an organization, has become corporatized.
Yeah, corporatized. And not all of it is necessarily bad. A lot of it, I mean, like say the Dalai Lama's is after all is an organization. It's an order, but it's doing so much good. And similarly, there are enough in this country. So we're not dissing all of those. We're just picking and choosing the ones those have, made it to the news for all the wrong reasons. So he was saying that you'll be surprised that their brain scans reveal almost the same level of disruption and disturbance in the same segments of the brain that you could see in that of a mere mortal trying to just make a bigger life for himself. with
It's
the same
very
stressors. In fact, he said those people can have outbursts, but these people have to maintain a facade of equanimity.
Mm.
So they can't have outbursts.
Oh, so then all that is repressed. This is very interesting because it ties into something that I just remembered. A young girl, a very sweet young girl who was handling the publicity for one of my books a few years ago. She suddenly called up and said, Kiran, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to go and join this very famous ashram and this very famous guru, whom I shall not name now.
Mm-hmm. Does he have a beard? I mean, they all do.
They all do, but he also has a beard.
Is he based out of South India?
We're getting close.
Okay, no, because there are so many. There are so many.
Yeah, he's based out of South India. So she joined up at this place, and initially she was very happy and she was there for a while. And after a year or so, I got a call from her. I'm back and I need you to help me to find a job. I said, what happened there? And apparently, the same thing that you said, the stress to constantly perform and to constantly deliver and to
And to get close to the guru, you start seeking validation from them. So it's just like having a CEO in a company.
Yeah. And the guru's also moody, also fickle, also finicky, like any other CEO. The guru will have his favorites, and the guru will decide whether you rise up the ladder or not. So that was her experience, and she's back in the corporate world now. I think she's done a stint with finding herself spiritually.
Yeah.
In fact, a dear friend of mine who's a Danish novelist wrote an entire book about his experience of finding himself in Sai Puttaparthi's ashram. And it's a hilarious book. It's called The Mango Dancer. And it's thinly veiled. It's thinly veiled.
Yeah.
And
he's fictionalized it?
He's done
The Mango Dancer.
He's done a bit of that.
What does he mean by a mango dancer?
I never asked him, actually. I should.
I mean, there's a video of probably the most famous of all cult leaders online. He's no longer around in physical body. But there's a video I watched while doing my research where he pulls out a gold egg from his mouth into a napkin, a mini hand towel actually. And then they replay it and you can see that it was already inside his hand. Yeah.
So it's a lot of magician and a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of sleight of hands and Rolex watches coming out and ash coming
Blue
out.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue smoke and mirrors.
Why Dera Sacha Saudas knows that, right? He called a girl and said, why don't you sit and watch some porn with me?
Yeah. But he was giving maafi to these girls.
And what was Asaram Bapu doing?
He was killing and raping people. So he's in.
But you know, when they arrested him, he went into that van singing.
Yeah.
Completely in a blissed out state.
So he must have probably been.
I think that his disciples believe that this was all about power and this was all kinds of corruption happening at lower levels, you know, basically with the blessings of his son.
Mm-hmm.
And that he is in their minds still untainted beyond reproach.
Okay.
And that because he had 55, 60 ashrams across India.
Quite enough.
The net worth of his ashram, not net worth, the income, I would say, they were all worth about 5,000 crores all put together.
Wow.
And mind you, this is not taxable income.
And also
right?
they were land grabbing cases.
They were land grabbing. They were land grabbing. They would just take up a land, establish an ashram there. The local politicians will not contest that because now they don't want to, you know,
upset the vote bank.
And then they just get legitimized when it becomes an old thing. Then, you know, certain journalists are wiped out of the picture. As you know, that in Dera, such as the journalist, many such journalists disappeared all the years. And then it's just all forgotten and forgiven. But the best one is so I was saying that this is the kind of startup that actually requires no capital and is a gift that goes on giving, because they should actually set up a body now of people who can, you know, be vigilantes, and they could be legal experts, and they could be ex people from forces, the police or whatever, or currently serving ones. And put together a body of that and activists, then tax the income of all these places and then have them do audits for all these places. It'll straight away, separate the wheat from the chaff.
The taxation and the audit is all too good. But when you talk about the vigilantes, we've had cases, sorry to be a dampener on this, but the people who call out superstition and who call out these things have actually been killed. We've had those.
See, this is the thing that if you call out people's beliefs, there is a problem with that. So they're not calling them out. If there's a malpractice going on over there, if there's a rape or murder or drug, think about this. We have so many good ashrams in this country that are actually doing a world of good.
They're doing good work, but unfortunately, the bad press sort of overshadows.
Rishikesh in Haridwar and outside of Dehradun, Manali, it's full of fantastic ashrams.
But it doesn't make good press, does it?
No, I know, but I'm just saying that because of these guys, we get a bad name. These are the kind of stories that the international media
picks up and amplifies. Yes, a lot of them.
Well, so I was really curious. This whole conversation about doing Godmen started after this Jay Shetty controversy, and even children who went to his book launch talk at NCPA. My daughter was invited by some friends. He came to launch some book on love or something.
Love, yeah, some rules of love.
Rules of love. And then even a young child of 18 and 19 said, Mama, it was just a rehash of everything, a waste of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Though she'd gone, she was eager to hear him speak.
Okay.
But what do you think is going to happen? Is his social currency and legitimacy going to get questioned internationally? Or will he just thrive and say, these people envy me? This is what gurus say, right? They see that this is nothing but people are threatened by my income and my popularity.
He is not a religious guru. So the hold is not so strong.
No, you'll be surprised.
People consider him a religion?
But no.
Jay Shetty?
No. I'm saying when you are an influencer like that, with that sort of a reach online, then, he can literally start his own cult, you know that. He has 15.4 million followers online. On Instagram alone.
Okay.
We don't know his Facebook followers or Twitter followers. This is bigger than any cult.
So they are not going to leave him because somebody said that he's plagiarized stuff because he's still giving them what they want, right? He's still giving them little soppy doses of stuff they can assimilate and get validation from. And, bite-sized nuggets of feel-good therapy, which doesn't require effort and work. That's what it boils down to ultimately. This is
we are in the wrong profession. What are we doing here?
I find we need to learn to give gyan instead of being sarcastic all the time.
Yeah, no. Correct.
So there's other gentleman called Tony Robbins. I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah.
He's huge in the West because he actually got people to start walking on hot coals. And he does these retreats where he charges like $5,000 per person. And he had some 400 or 500 people sign up.
Has he been to India?
No, he hasn't been to India, but he's got such a strong following and he continues to have a strong following. I still see his videos coming up.
But he's not misusing it. That's the whole point.
That's what I'm coming to, darling. Oh. He has had allegations of sexual assault against him, not murder, unlike us. He's one level lower than us.
Yeah.
But despite those allegations, he continues to have a strong following. And people still come for those things to listen to his talk.
Yeah.
Because he knows how to play the gallery. He knows how to work the crowd.
People aren't willing to forsake their beliefs so quickly. Because then what else will they hold on to? What is their next crutch?
What do you hold on to? Climate change?
Yeah.
In the current world? What do you hold on
Speaking
to?
Of climate change, hot yoga, Bikram Yogi.
Oh, yeah. Lovely. Lovely.
And his little chaddis.
I think the reason half of these people become gurus is because they can't get laid otherwise. They're so ugly.
This is a quotable quote. Truly. Imagine starting an entire cult because you want to get laid easily.
Don't you think so?
He's quite gross looking.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary on him. Why the people used to know hot yoga in Bombay also.
Maybe he came to Bombay instead of...
if you did it in a Scandinavian country, I would understand.
But we have a sauna going on as soon as we step out of the house.
That's what I'm saying. It couldn't have done very much for the people who were doing it here or in other hot countries.
He'll be Brinkle-prone completely. But he did have to leave.
So where is he now? He's amassed enough fortune now. So even if he's roaming around scot-free, full of hot air, since there's no hot yoga now, I think he'll get by. I mean, this is the problem with all our systems around the world.
Yeah, and he's 80 now. There's not long that he's going to get by any longer.
After all that hot yoga, he made it to 18. Maybe he wasn't doing it. Yeah. But speaking of people, I mean, con men and god men. Yeah. Isn't it funny? Con men, god men, it sort of rhymes. There is this very popular godman who is very popular among the elite of our country. His story is so interesting because a friend of mine shared the story with me. He's from Punjab. And he said that this gentleman was a linesman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, in some small town of Punjab. And he would, those days, you're talking about landline days, he would listen into conversations sometimes. Linesmen can do that. And he came up with a brilliant business plan. He started moonlighting as a godman among the wealthy community who had no idea that he works as a linesman also.
Oh.
And he started, calling them in and saying that I know that you can't conceive a child, and I know that your husband is going through a whatever, joblessness, and I know that, whatever, your mother-in-law ill-treats you. And his his target at first was just women, because women tend to be more vulnerable, more gullible. And that's how he won them over. And then he started earning enough wealth to leave his job as a linesman. Then came the problem. See, by then, there's a law of averages. Out of 10 things I'll predict to you today, even if 3 come true,
you'll believe in me.
Yeah. So something like that happened, or he got found out, so he had to leave that village and start all over. And then he started this whole thing that, if you eat this, your illness will be cured.
Mm-hmm.
And one guy who was severely diabetic, he made him eat gulab jamuns or laddus or something.
Oh, Lord.
Jalebis, and that guy got hospitalized.
Oh, Lord.
And this friend of mine knows the family in which this whole incident took place all those years ago. So then the family beat this so-called godman, black and blue, and he packed his bags and fled from that town before the cops could come and get him. By which time, I think he had certain other charges against him of the nature of molestation or not.
Okay.
And then he started life all over in a big metro. I shall not reveal which one. And the wealthiest people in our country became his followers and disciples. And this is not in the long past.
Oh, that's very interesting. We've had so many cases of godmen.
But isn't this what a genius? Listen to conversations. I mean, you couldn't possibly, maybe he went out of business because the mobile phones took over.
Yeah, and he couldn't listen into conversations.
Could be that, because I don't know the deeds of that, but ingenious plan.
I was just thinking, what did he do when he gave up his job? Did he hire other people who were linesmen to convey stuff to him? Because he obviously needed that.
Then they can also become, maybe, see, once I have 1,000, 2,000 people in a small town believing in my, supernatural abilities, that's enough. The rest will just come. So there was one guy, what's his name? Nirmal Baba. There's a Nirmal Baba. And my father had told me about him first. He became very popular. He would literally say, आपको डिप्रेशन हो गया है, आपकी जमीन छीन ली है किसी ने, लीगल केस चल रहा है आपके ऊपर, आप एक काम करो, आप जाके 100 रुपए की जलेबी खा लो, सब ठीक हो जाएगा.
Really?
I think those kind of things work on the power of auto-suggestion and manifestation. I think this is what manifestation was before it became manifestation.
Possibly.
Have someone prescribe some silly harebrained solution to, you, and you go and do it, and then something works out for you. It's the power of belief.
I'm going to have 100 rupees ki jalebi today if my book becomes a bestseller.
Chalo.
We can do it.
This is how I'll start my cult.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a nice catchy name. Yeah.
The cult.
It can't be not your auntie cult.
Cult of personality. But I think John Cena has taken that already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Also, that applies to only one individual in our country. I mean, Mr. Bachchan. Yeah, I mean, look at him.
Mr. Bachchan?
Yeah.
Okay. If you say so.
He's a legend, and if he sneezes, that becomes...
I just was reminded of a relative of mine who's going through a very bad financial time. financial phase. And in that desperation, I think he was turning to whoever told him,
Yeah.
whatever, do something. So he was asked to go to this little place on the outskirts of Bombay, and he had to reach there by 4 in the morning, because that was when this particular guru gave darshan. It was a woman. 4 in the morning. So you can imagine this man goes 4 in the morning, early morning, and then you have to put your question, your parchi or whatever in your hand, and you have to ask the guru. And if she deigns to give you a reply, whatever, and then there was a puja to be done, and there was some, I don't know what sorts of weird things were prescribed to do this for so many weeks and all that. Anyway, cut a long story short, he went bankrupt anyway.
Yeah.
So I
So
really
you go through what you have to
do
go
through.
through.
You just hold on to whatever gives you hope.
Sure.
So maybe that's how they get that crowd.
Look, we all, when we are going through life challenges, I'm actually, none of this conversation is meant to scorn or laugh at people who've gone through challenges and gone looking for gurus, because it's a natural human tendency. You're desperate, you're like a fish out of water, and you'll clutch onto straws.
This is like us scrolling through Insta and looking at all the tarot reels telling us we're going to have a wonderful day tomorrow. And,
Kiran, it's true, right? See, religious is the opium of the masses.
it is an
It is the drug you need. You need faith in somebody who's more manifest than an abstract God to help you get past something. And if his one or two predictions work out, then every decision you make, everything you will do. Don't people do that with astrologers? There are people who call astrologers for every small decision. Should I leave town? Should I do this? Today is a Tuesday. Should I wear this? Should I not do that? And you're right. I think ultimately what I've seen in life is what has to happen is going to happen irrespective.
Absolutely.
You will just be busy while that's happening, because you'll be busy doing all these totkas.
And you'll be spending all the money that you have anyway doing this podcast. I wonder what happens to this doomsday cult followers when their predictions don't come true.
Yeah.
Okay, you've said like, okay, you follow me, I'm going to save you from this great end of the world thing happening. An asteroid is going to slam into us. Aliens are going to come and take us to their planet or whatever. Then the date comes and passes. What do the followers do then?
I think these, again, those cult leaders have a plan. They amass enough money until their deadline, and then they must be bolting, disappearing.
So many of them commit suicide, the followers.
Listen, speaking of followers, you told me about some church scene in Kanyakumari.
Yes.
Outside a church in Kanyakumari, no less. Can we go over that?
So
it was hysterically funny.
So it popped up on my Insta feed. I don't know how.
You showed it to me also, yeah.
And the caption was, when you put rye in hot oil.
When you
put rye in
yeah,
hot oil.
Crackles.
Yeah, tadka de rahe ho. So there's this gentleman who's a priest in a church, and he's sort of, all these women are lined up standing quietly in front of him, and he is tapping them on their forehead. And as he's
a healer.
He's a healer, he's a whatever. And as he taps them, each one begins jumping in the spot and then rolling around and crying. Then one of them...
Like some exorcism.
Yeah, like a mass exorcism going on. And one of them received a call on her phone. She stopped jumping around. She coolly took out her phone, answered the call, put the phone back in her pocket, and started jumping around all over again.
Fab.
So that's
fab.
How it is.
Too good. Speaking of exorcism, I'd gone to Maheshwar last year, recall. And on one of the nights when we were there, of course, beautiful place, beautiful property, blah, blah, blah. I saw that there was a very strong, there was a throng of people by the ghats. And in the day, the ghats had been empty. So I'd been, in fact, told that these ghats are always empty. They're not like the Banaras ghats. But there was some serious music coming, a monotonous sound, tick, 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 a very haunting, a monotonous beat.
Okay.
And I leaned over the fortress's parapet to look below, and I saw there were exorcisms being performed.
Oh Lord!
There were people rolling on the floor, and someone told me that they have some serpent atma in them, so that was being removed. And the next morning, my husband and I went for a boat ride, and we witnessed. There must have been about 1,000 clusters of people in that water. Women dressed up with garish makeup, long black fake hair like a witch chudel, and they were dunking all these people in the water to purge them of all the evil ghosts who had taken possession of their soul. And this was done on some very big Amavasya night, like a dark, whatever night. So the tour guide, he was showing me around the next day, and I told him about this. It was eerie and creepy. And my husband was there only for a day, right? So I was afraid to be in my room at night because I said, this is really spooky. So I requested the hotel to shift my room. I had this beautiful big room in which Mick Jagger had stayed.
Wow.
And I asked them to please move my room to some lesser celebrities' room within the hotel complex at the beautiful Ahilya Fort Hotel. So they moved me into a much smaller room that overlooked a simple basic courtyard instead of the Narmada River. But I was so spooked out. And the next day, the tour guide, now this guy, the student of history, he's an MA in history and stuff. And he said, no, but it's all true. But it's real.
It's real.
Yeah, he said that we have many such mosques also.
Yeah.
Where we take people and they walk in completely schizophrenic and crazy and they walk out absolutely normal.
But this
So
deserves the power of belief. Belief and auto-suggestion here. Also, I wonder, where do all those ghosts go once they exercise? Do they hang around there and wait
I
for
latch on to somebody.
somebody
I
else?
asked him this.
Yeah,
He said they do.
they do?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I'm glad you got out of there fast.
So, Kiran, why we have all these Rasputin-like characters floating about in and outside of prisons? There are also so many good, yogis and gurus. You have somebody called Pilot Baba.
Mhm.
Have you heard about him?
I've heard the name. I'm not sure what he
He
does
worked in the Air
exactly.
Force for 15 years, and he attracts disciples from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
He's a proper yogi. He went and lived in the Himalayas in a cave, meditated over there, came back, keeps going back, meditated. Also, you see, they reach a stage where it's mind over matter. So, in very low levels of oxygen, under the water, these are all called siddhis. And even if you don't know enough about India and gurus and yogis, and you've even read the beginner's book called Autobiography of a Yogi, you'll know that siddhis. So the thing is that this is a part of our spiritual heritage, people with siddhis.
Absolutely.
And these very people are the reason why India is revered around the world also. And then if some people have made a dukan of this to exploit people, not much can be done about that except find entertainment from it and hope that, someday or the other these people get called out.
They get called out, and hopefully people understand that they should not succumb to what they're offering.
Yeah.